Appreciate you being here.
My
It's
pleasure.
always so
My
fun
pleasure.
to talk. And
My pleasure.
your family has had such a long history at our bank, and so I'd love to talk about that. And then you've been an incredible leader here and great mentor for me. And so, when I think about you and the bank, it's you can't think about Citizens Bank of Edmond without the Thompson family and your leadership.
Thanks.
So really grateful to have you here today to talk about
me
that. So
too.
can you talk
Great.
a little bit about your history at the bank and your family, some of your earliest
Yes.
memories?
I got to thinking when you all asked me to do this, I thought, I've been banking here for 63 years.
Wow.
And I'm 73 years old. My granddad, I started mowing lawns when I was 10. And my granddad said, what do you do with this little money you're getting from mowing lawns? I said, well, I just put it in this cigar box over here. And he said, okay, we're going to the bank. And he brought me down to Citizens Bank. And the first thing I remember is that I couldn't see up to the teller people.
Wow.
But I started a savings account when I was 10.
So that was across the street at the original bank?
And it was good because when I'd come down here, this was a drugstore, so I get to come over to Rexall Drug and buy a piece of candy when I put the money in the bank. But that's kind of how it started, because my granddad was friends with Randy's granddad. I mean, he banked here all those years. He was a businessman, but he's also a farmer and rancher, so he'd have to borrow money for cattle every year, and that's a pretty good story. But then my dad was Randy's dad's age and friends, and then Randy and I grew up together. So this has just been a part of me. I mean, this was Edmond. Citizens Bank was Edmond.
And then your dad served on our board.
My dad was on the board for years and years and years. I'm not sure how many years. I think it was 26 or 27.
We'll have to research that.
Yeah. I'm not sure of that. And then Randy came to me and said, I want you on this board. You need to be on this board. When my dad got off the board, and he said, but we need to wait a year or two. I don't want them to think you're on the board just because of your dad. You're going to be on this board because you need to be on this board with Edmond. And that meant a lot. So we waited 2 years, and then I got luckily and gratefully appointed to the board.
Yeah, and I got to experience you ascending to being chairman of our bank board. And what did that mean to you? I remember it was a difficult time, but
it was a difficult time, but it was very honorable for me. We had interviews during the troubled times. The Federal Reserve interviewed all of us, and I came out of that meeting, and the next day, I think it was Bob Toller maybe. Anyway, somebody called me and said, after interviewing, we think you should be chairman of the board. And I was totally shocked and totally surprised, but yet on top of that, I was just totally honored, because this has been a part of me for some reason forever. So
yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the bank has gone through lots of difficult times over its 125 years. It's had Great Depression, World Wars, oil bust, and then the financial crisis, where you were really at the helm of leading us through that, a really hard time for the bank, a really difficult time for me personally. But you really were that great bridge between the community and the bank and shareholders in the bank. Can you talk a little bit about kind of our shareholders and who owns the bank, and how kind of you have fallen in a position of kind of being the trusted advisor for our shareholders?
Well, when I first got on the board, before I was chairman of the board, it was mostly internal people more than external people. It was all men, no ladies, and we were just, it was good, and it was great. The bank was doing good, so we thought everything in the world was good, and then we had a little bit of a financial crisis, and that was a hard time. For one thing, Randy Granzo and I were close friends and still close friends. So it was, as the board evolved, we had a meeting the other night, and I looked around the table and I thought, my goodness, this board has evolved. For one thing, the smartest people in the room were the ladies, which I thought was really cool. But we've evolved so much, but through all that, we've kept the community spirit. I mean, which that's maybe the thing I'm the most proud of. With Edmond schools, University of Central Oklahoma, downtown Edmond, but it's been a real neat thing to see the board evolve and change, and that was because of you. When the kind of crisis started, our CFO was leaving along with these other people, and I went to Randy and I said, "What are we going to do? We're in trouble. What are we going to do?" And he said, "Don't worry about it. We've got it covered. My daughter's coming in here." And that's exactly what he told me. And then when that kind of got out, the first thing was, well, he's just bringing her in because it's his daughter. And little did anybody know that she was the savior. I mean, the changes happened just months after you came. I mean, it was unbelievable, the impact that had. And, you know, we had over 100 employees, which there was just so much going on that we didn't know as a board behind the scenes. But when you came and were on the board, the transparency became everything. We felt better. We learned from all this stuff. So we learned so much, and it was because you came in here and were tough enough to do what needed to do.
Well, it definitely made me tougher because you all had such a heart for this organization, and knowing that the employees own the biggest chunk of the bank.
Yes.
And if something would have happened to this, it wasn't just, you know, some wealthy family that was going to, you know, be hurt. It was the retirement of our team.
Yes.
And then our shareholders are not a big wealthy bunch. You know, it
Yeah.
is Edmond citizens that have owned the stock for
Yes,
generations,
yes.
and have known your family for
Yes.
generations.
Well, the one thing you just mentioned was when my dad was on the board of directors, there was an individual that tried to have a hostile takeover of the bank. And the board got together and said, we're not going to let this happen anymore.
Mhm.
And so I've always loved that. I used to think of the bank in thirds. The employees own
Yes.
share of the bank, the shareholders own a third of the bank, and then the Granzo family owned a third of the bank. So
Yes.
I really liked that mix because
Mhm.
that kind of made it where nobody could do that. But I really love that the people I'm talking to at a teller line or anywhere around, they have ownership.
Yes.
And that's really unusual, especially in this day and age. So
It really
yeah, that
is.
was big.
You talked about whenever you first came to the bank that this bank was Edmond, you know, downtown Edmond, UCO.
Exactly.
How do you see that evolving now? Where there's like 70 banks in Edmond, and we're the oldest by 70 years, the oldest in Oklahoma County, oldest business in Edmond. But you know, times have changed so much. Have we been able to keep that same spirit, or?
But stood the test of time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's the big thing. I've been around. I was born right down the street, so I've been here for a long, long time, and I get asked a lot, even for people that aren't shareholders, how's the bank doing? Well, the bank looks like they're doing great. They have that Hurd on Hurd and all that kind of stuff. I said, it's been the backbone. I mean, there was just two banks when I was a child. There was First National Bank, there was Citizens Bank, but to me, there was just Citizens Bank.
Yeah.
And that feel, I think, has stayed, even though new people come. I have a neighbor that just moved here from California, and she said, your wife told me that you were on the board of directors of the bank. I said, you need to not, there's nowhere else for you to bank in Edmond. I mean, there's one on every street corner, but there's only one. You need to go to Citizens Bank. And they did.
That's so great.
That's kind of my feeling about it. I don't know why I had such a strong deal. I guess because I've been here and knew the family, but it's just the backbone of this community.
It really is. When you think about the future, how do you see a bank like ours enduring?
I feel like ours is going to endure because we were you started suggesting and acting upon some things to the board that we had never even thought of about. Well, the first thing we had these branches at 3 different locations, which weren't making any money. And the first thing you said, you know, that's important. So we did that. And then IT, we were so far ahead of everybody on IT, and which was so important. When I went to my first banking seminar and got some rating as a board member, they start talking about, well, branches are out. You know, there's going to be one focal point and other things like that. And I got to look at them and say, well, we did this 5 years ago, which I thought was really cool. So I think we're well positioned. Our board composition now is tremendous. We have people from all different fields doing a lot of things. So I think we're well positioned for the future. I don't have any concern about the future with your leadership and the board composition. I really don't.
How important is it to you? I mean, Citizens Bank has been either Citizens National Bank of Edmond or Citizens Bank of Edmond since its beginning in 1901. And during the financial crisis, there was times where that ownership potentially could have changed, and the name of the bank on the wall, outside could have been something different. But through your leadership, it seemed like it was really important to you that didn't change and it stayed independent. How important is that to you for the future of the bank?
It's still very important. If you remember, when we started doing some changes, it was all about the business and all that kind of stuff. And I kept saying, but our focus in Edmond has been the community as well as making money is the community. And that was important to me and still is. So as we've grown and it's just such a business, it's a tough world out there, we have embraced doing that, but we've also embraced the past and what it meant to do it. So that's important to me. I remember when we put the new signs on the wall, I said, that's going to be there for a long time. So it's very important to me going into the future. That's because that's the thing we have that nobody else has. You can put them on every street corner, but we have something they don't have.
How would you describe that kind of piece that no one else has?
Well, everybody has the feeling that if something needs to be done in Edmond, Citizens are going to help with it, regardless of what it is. We're going to find a way to help it, but we're also going to be there as Edmond grows economically and all that kind of stuff. We're right there for them, positioned to help them with their financial needs. But then we're also going to be supporting their daughter's Little League team, So that's a big thing to me.
I remember there was a family in crisis. I don't even know if you'll remember this because it was such an easy ask that the board said yes to. There's a family in crisis at Russell Doherty. It was a cafeteria worker who had left an abusive situation. They had to move to Guthrie with her daughter in a really fast time period. And Cynthia and our kids were at Russell Doherty and got the email like, this family needs help. And I went to the board and just said, hey, we have this extra car. We would like to donate all of our Oreo furniture. Our team wants to do a collection. And the bank wants to prepay the insurance for the car for a year. And you all were just like, yes. I mean, there wasn't even a discussion about it.
I remember.
It wasn't tax deductible. We weren't going to get a press release. I think this is the first time ever you talked about it publicly. I don't think a typical bank board would be like, we got to do this, but it kind of speaks to.
There wasn't any hesitation at all. For one thing, it was just the right thing to do, and I knew about it because I had a business that I sell things to the schools, and I was real involved with Russell Doherty and in the growth of Russell Doherty when it was a school. So I remember that, and that was, other banks weren't going to do that, So that just was another feather in your cap.
When we talked about Hurd on Hurd initially, it's been 13 seasons now that we've had the street festival in downtown. Another kind of ask of the board that was so easy that probably wouldn't have made a lot of sense to other bank boards, but for us, it seemed like you guys really got it. I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
It was one of my true joys because they just reinforced my feelings about the Edmond community. That was totally your idea. The board hadn't thought of that. You thought of that, and it, like you said, it was. I hope you think it was an easy ask because we embraced that right there because there couldn't be anybody else. Any other downtown business couldn't have started that and got it done. And I don't think any other business could have got it done with the city of Edmond approving it.
That's true. It was pretty hard back then.
except you. But that was what was wonderful about it. It just was another thing that we have done, and it's not a money maker.
No.
It's not a money maker, but the employees. I've been to it a million times, and if we've got 50 employees, 40 of them are out here helping and working and doing those things. So that's just another example of what we do.
When you tell people that you're on the Citizens Bank board and that you're the leadership of your family through the years with the bank, tell me about how that feels.
Well, it's a great feeling. That I've always felt that I was always been proud of our Thompson name, but I'm just as proud of the Citizens Bank name. Like I said, I've been banking here pretty much my whole life, and so when I think of Edmond, which I've had several opportunities to move and do other businesses elsewhere, I just can't leave Edmond because it's a part of me and part of my family. But Citizens is a huge part of that. So that's been a true blessing.
And your family, I mean, you go to UCO, and the Thompson family is very prevalent there in their leadership, and you're known to be, and your family is known to be civic leaders in our community. I'd love to hear just more about your family's history and their leadership here in Edmond at UCO.
Well, my granddad went to OU, and he was a farmer and stuff. But he wanted to be a pharmacist, so he went to OU to be a pharmacist. And one quick story about how my family evolved in Edmond that is special to me is that my granddad, every year he bought cattle, and he came in to Randy's granddad, and he said, how much you need? And I got to look when my granddad passed away. I was the executor, so my grandmother said, you go look through all of his stuff. And I found this banknote, and it said my grandfather borrowed $10,000. And that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And on the payment terms, it said, when you can.
Oh my gosh.
And I gave
I
it.
get like goosebumps.
I am too. But I thought, oh my gosh, there was no written deal, 6%, 5%, blah, 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 in a certain period of time. It said, when you can.
Wow.
And he knew that Granddad would come in when he sold his cattle and do that. I donated that down at the historical thing once to where the bank thing was. So hopefully
Okay.
it's still
Yeah,
down
we'll
there.
have to make sure
Still
we get
down there. But that's an example to me. But I can tell you another story about that was a granddad's deal. And then my dad was, when he was on the board of directors, he had an insurance on a real estate business down the street. I've told you this story, I think, before, but the bank was across the street and they closed the back door at 3:00. And my dad always rushed down here every time to get his deposit for the day into the bank. Well, he came, it was about 5 till 3, and he opened, the door was locked.
Yes.
And he was mad because he started yelling. He said, open this door. It's not 3:00. Let me in this bank. Well, they opened the door, and the guy put a gun in my dad's face and said, yeah, come on in. Well, his stubbornness cost him his deposit, cost him his watch, and cost him his wallet.
Oh no.
So anyway, so that's kind of 3 generations of this place being an important place to us.
Yeah, I mean, to be part of a robbery too as a customers, that was he ended up in the paper, I think.
He did,
after
yeah.
that.
They had a newspaper deal and put my dad in there for not the right reasons, but he was in there. Yeah, but he always told me when I got on the board, he was still alive, and the main thing he told me was, it's never about you on the board of directors. It's about the bank and the family and the community. It's not about you wanting a certain rate or whatever. It's about what's best for the bank. And I hopefully that I've always kept that feeling while being on the board.
Gosh, whenever we were going through that kind of difficult times under your leadership and you leading us through there, I think what was shocking to me, I'd worked at the bank before and worked at a bank in Minnesota and at the Federal Reserve, but whenever we were in trouble, customers were coming in and they were telling me how important the bank was to Edmond. You know,
Yes.
even though there's dozens of banks out there, they just kept saying, like, we can't lose Citizens Bank of Edmond. You know, the movie It's a Wonderful Life is really about like community banker and kind of what his, if he didn't exist, what would have happened in Bedford Falls. If there wasn't a Citizens Bank, if this bank didn't exist going forward, what type of void do you think there would be in our community?
Oh, I think there would be a tremendous void because the bank, I had tons of shareholders and Edmond citizens when the times started getting hard, called me or asked me or stopped me on the street or whatever, asked me, is the bank going to be? I said, we're going to be okay. Yeah. We're going to be okay. We had 2 schools that were, their principals were close friends of mine. OCS, the business manager, close friend of mine, she said, tell me about the bank. We have all our money at Citizens Bank. I said, don't worry. If there's anything to worry about, you'll be the first person I come talk to. And she said, I'm not going to worry about it.
Wow.
And she told me that 10 years later. She said, I was the people at the school were telling me we probably need to move our money. And she said, no, we're not moving it. And I thought that was that was Oklahoma Christian School.
Yes,
I mean, that was a really neat deal to me. And then I think, luckily, when they put me on as chairman of the board, I think that helped with the feelings, because times were tough. And if I was willing to step in and do the chairman stuff, that they thought, well, we're going to be okay, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the hours that you all put in, not being bank employees, some of the bank board really has little or no ownership inside the bank. So financially, they're not really
Right.
invested, but the level of investment of time and commitment, how did you pull that out of them? Or was that just individually what we have from
Well,
members of our board?
You're right in that I looked around and a lot of the board members didn't have a lot of stock, but they were also downtown business people, people that were also involved in the community and other things. So as we transitioned, you actually brought that feeling to us.
Oh.
There's no doubt you brought, like I mentioned earlier, that, oh, we're in trouble, and Randy said, no, we're not. Well, I think I told you a week after you were here, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that, I thought, we're going to make this. If she can handle it, we can handle it. And so.
Well, and I was thinking, if y'all can handle it, I can handle it. So I'm glad we didn't talk about it.
I understand. I totally
Yes.
understand. But
Yes.
we visited a lot.
Yes.
Whether it was right in here or at the lamppost out there at the corner,
That's
we
right.
visited a lot, and not just weekdays, on weekends too.
Yeah.
And you developed a plan, and we developed a plan, and we took everything they asked us to do, and we did it. It was pretty amazing to do, because there's a lot of things that they asked us to do, and we didn't bow down from any of them.
When you think about your kids and your grandkids and like what banking will look like for them, how do you frame it for them that a bank like Citizens Bank is important for their futures?
Well, I think it is. All my kids, all my family, they have always banked here but like my son, he's a captain at the fire department. He doesn't come in the bank. He does all his banking online, and they got their home mortgage. They came down here, got it here. So I think it's embedded in them. But then as some people married into our family, they banked elsewhere.
Yeah.
They all bank here now.
Yes.
And not just because it's us, but because that we do things that they don't do. I mean, how many other banks can you walk in and the the president of the bank's door's open?
It's not very many sitting in the lobby.
And there's a lot of people have your cell phone number. Name any other bank that does that.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids have noticed that, and they think that's really cool in my family.
Well, that accountability that you have to our shareholders and our community, and your willingness to put yourself out there really was a great model for me to stand, how I would do things. And the same with like how Gordon and Randy were always so accessible on and being accountable, especially when we were in trouble, that, it just seemed to ease everyone's nerves that they knew that they could come in and confront the president or encourage or debate. So,
totally
and
I remember Gordon sitting there. He'd have my dad's Gordon. Sometimes he didn't have a lot of stuff on his desk. He was sitting there just looking at everybody. And I asked my dad about that, and he said, Gordon makes his salary and 10 times more by 9 o'clock every morning during the business stuff. All that kind of stuff. He said it's amazing. He knows what to do and when to do it. And he also kind of let Randy learn it through the system and not by just telling him what to do.
Yeah.
I really liked that. That was good for Randy to get his feet wet and make some mistakes, but make good things. And I think that's how he evolved, because Randy was so level-headed that, when you grew up in Edmond, you went to Edmond High School, everybody he graduated with came and said, I want to borrow some money.
Can you talk about your relationship with Randy and how long that's been?
Sure. I guess when I was about 10 or 11, they had a bowling alley in Edmond. That was about the only thing to do on weekends, because we played Little League during the week. And so Randy and I bowled on a little bowling team together when we were like 10, 11, and 12. And he was really a good bowler.
Very good bowler.
He's a very good bowler. So we went around to some tournaments together. There was like 4 of us. So I've known Randy basically my whole life through through sports, probably mainly. And then as we got older, we had a lot of the same interests. We used to have horses and rope together, and we went to roping schools together. I bought my first horse trailer from Randy, and actually I bought a pickup from Randy too.
Well, that's a good deal. He takes care of his pickups.
Well, but this one,
And you take better care of cars than anyone I ever known.
yeah. But Randy and I go way back. We just had it's one of those deals where when I got out of school and I was playing ball in college and he was up here at the bank, there's periods of time where you don't see a good friend, every week or every month or what. But then when you see them, it's one of those deals where you just know that you're friends, and that's a pretty good deal.